Nachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Giribharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Giribharadhari Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishi Guru and Shigauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, entitled Liberation, Chapter 3, The Marriage of Sukanya and Chavana Muni, text 17 to 20. 16? No, 17 to 20. So we read 20 responsibly. Not responsible. Responsibly. Okay. So I read it by myself. 17, 18, and 19. Darshajitva patintasya pativratye natoshitao rishin amantriyajayatur bimanena tribishtapam. Translation: The Aswini Kumaras were very pleased to see Sukanya's chastity and faithfulness. Thus they show her Chavana Muni, her husband, and after taking permission from him, they return to the heavenly planets in their plane. Text number 18. Jakshamano tastaryatis chavyanashram gataha dadarsha dahitu parshve purusham surya varshasam. Translation: Thereafter, King Satyati, desiring to perform a sacrifice, went to the residence of Chavana Muni. There he saw by the sides of his daughter a very beautiful young man, as bright as the sun. Text number 19. Rajadu hitaram praha kritapada bhivadanam ashishas chaya chaprajujano nati priti manaiva. Translation: After receiving obeisances from his daughter, the king, instead of offering blessings to her, appeared very displeased and spoke as follows. Text number 20. Chikirshitan kin idan patistvaya. Okay, we have the wrong one there. So text 20 in your little devices. Do it again. Chikirshitam te kim idam patastvaya. Pralambhito loka namaskrito munihi. Jatvam jaragrastana shatya sammatam Bihajajarem bhajase mun advajam advagam Chikirshitam te kinidam patistvaya Pralambhito loka namaskrito munihi Jatvam jaragrastanga shatya sammatam Bihajajaram bhajase mun advagam Chikirshitam ten kinadiam patistvaya Pralambhito loka namaskrito munihi Jatvam jaragrastana shatya sammatam Bihajajaram bhajase mun advagam. Please chant. chikirushitam, which you desire to do. Te, of you. Kim idam, what is this? Patihi, your husband. Tvaya, by you. Pralambhitaha, has been cheated. Lokanamaskritaha, who is honored by all people. Munihi, a great sage. Yat, because. Tvam, you. Jaragrastam, very old and invalid. As Sati, O unchaste daughter. Asammatam, not very attractive. Vihaya, given up. Jaram, paramor. Bhajase, you have accepted. Amun, this man. Advagam, comparable to a street beggar. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O unchaste girl, what is this you have desired to do? You have cheated the most respectable husband who is honored by everyone. For I see that because he was old, diseased, and therefore unattractive, you have left his company to accept as your husband this young man who appears to be a beggar from the street. Purport. This shows the values of Vedic culture. According to the circumstances, Sukanya has been given a husband who was too old to be compatible with her. Because Shavana Muni was diseased and very old, he was certainly unfit for the beautiful daughter of King Saryati. Nonetheless, her father expected her to be faithful to her husband. When he suddenly saw that his daughter has accepted someone else, even though the man was young and handsome, he immediately chastised her as asati, unchaste, because he assumed that she had accepted another man in the presence of her husband. According to Vedic culture, even if a young woman is given an old husband, she must respectfully serve him. This is chastity. It is not that because she dislikes her husband, she may give him up and accept another. This is against Vedic culture. According to Vedic culture, a woman must accept the husband given to her by her parents and remain chaste and faithful to him. Therefore, King Saryati was surprised to see a young man by the side of Sukanya. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Rompa Swami. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine. Vancha Kalpatarubhyasha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So this word asati is translated as unchaste. And asati is a negation of sati. Sati means chaste. Asati means unchaste. And there's a term that Prabhupada used that is satiti dharma. Satiti dharma describing the dharma of chastity. And in general, this word chastity is related to abstinence from irreligious sex life, or is within the principles of marriage life. So, there's principles of chastity both for husband and wife, in terms of the committing to maintain a relationship that is based on religious principles. Krishna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, that what is those religious principles that he himself manifests as those religious principles within this relationship of marriage that translate into sex life. So Krishna says, what is it? Kama, dharma viruddho kamasmi. That I am sex life, which is in accordance with religious principles. So it's a commitment to be, yesterday I think you gave the definition, Acharya Nishta Prabhu gave the definition of chastity from, that is, what is it, morally pure. And once remain morally pure. So it's a commitment to uphold the principles of religion. That's going deeper into the principle of chastity. And we also hear within the scriptures that this chastity not only refers to the relationship between a husband and a wife, and much greatly applied to the wife to be chaste. It's a quality that is in general given to the woman, or that is one of the greatest qualities, or the strongest qualities in a lady. However, there is descriptions being chaste towards the spiritual master. We hear that how to be a chaste disciple of your spiritual master. Because the principles apply, the principles of chastity is one have to control the impulses to act in certain way. So one adheres to the principles, the vows, religious vows that one has made, and one abstains from anything that is being what is the word? Enticed to act contrary to that. One resists or abstains from any sort of enticement. Is that the right word? Enticement. To be tempted to act against that. So one abstain anything like that. So a chaste individual will abstain from breaking any of the religious vows by which this person lives. So for the ladies, there is this dharma, or these principles of religion is called satiti dharma. When describe the dharma of a chasteful wife, satiti dharma. And the word here is asati. Asati means that sati, that chastity doesn't exist. It's gone. So the principle, how those apply for us, in terms, these are lessons that we're learning, but lessons of character. Important lessons of character for all devotees. And there's a principle that is there, that you can be chaste, because there is chastity and there is purity. We hear from from that definition of morally pure, that is the highest definition of chastity. But we know chastity is possible to be chaste and not being pure. I'm going to make this statement and then go further on that. It's possible to be chaste and not being pure. However, it's not possible for someone who is pure to not be chaste. Is that? And when in the position of not being fully pure, chastity is applied by some discipline, or in some way, sometimes by force. And we know from the medieval times, there used to be this famous chastity belt that will put on the unmarried woman or married woman to make sure that they, by force, remain chaste. Going to the museum. I remember going to the museums in New York. You see, there was this one time, this whole thing about the medieval times, and with all the dresses and all the. It was a thing of the dresses, and you can see, this chastity belt. They were pretty heavy and very, anyway, by force. So many cultures is like that. They make in the beginning, when there is no purity, by some sort of discipline of force, you try to keep the purity, the moral, the purity or the morality, the proper moral behavior protected. One of the things that happens, the consequences, you have the pros and cons. That one is that when one is by discipline or by force maintain a chaste behavior, then one is protected in one sense of bad association or bad influence, and one can sort of in a more protective manner just grow and grow as a person, both internally and externally, like that. However, the danger of that is that one becomes insulated or isolated, meaning that one is so afraid or so sheltered that one refrains of making any proper contact or approaching the world outside, that very protective, reclusive space. So there's advantages and disadvantages. Now, contrary to that, when someone becomes mature, when the purity grows, naturally, chastity is there, and it's not by force, but it's just by feeling. The connection and the commitment to those principles are just a natural consequences of purity. That one is just naturally not necessarily even considered to put into to create any harm to the path of religions that one is living, to the higher principles that govern relationships. So in the beginning, there's a very nice example of a conversation that is with Srila Prabhupada and one of his god brothers that is recorded in Prabhupada's conversation that highlight this point very much. This god brother of Srila Prabhupada, his name was OBL Kapoor. He was a dear god brother of Srila Prabhupada, and even, he wrote articles for the BBT at times for Srila Prabhupada. So in a rude conversation with Srila Prabhupada, OBL Thakur asked him that what will happen to Srila Prabhupada's disciples if they completely isolate themselves to hearing from other Vaishnavas, that not only Srila Prabhupada, but making themselves able to associate with other Vaishnavas that are highly qualified and pure, instead of hearing exclusively from Srila Prabhupada. So he was questioning, Prabhupada's, God brother friendly, not, challenging. Prabhupada's decision to shield his disciples from too much association with Prabhupada's god brothers. And he raised the question that wouldn't they be at one point even in danger of committing some apparat to very elevated devotees? So this isolation, he was questioning, is it healthy for the long term, the long run of his disciples? And Srila Prabhupada explained it in a very beautiful way. He said that my disciples are like very young plants or creepers that I built a fence around them to protect them. So Prabhupada created this fence in the beginning because they needed a very, very exclusive, isolated care. So they grow very healthy. But Prabhupada said it is expected as they become mature trees, they will reach outside the fence. And then will be able to be in contact not only with, being able to connect to any bona fide Vaishnava or Vaishnava literature without being confused or deviated because of their maturity. So, as ones become pure, chastity is fixed. But when one is not pure, chastity is in danger. So one have to be very, very careful. Very careful. One have to be very careful. One have to be afraid. The other day we were discussing, Madhava Gauranga and myself, about sometimes, being afraid or of doing, of getting out of, being even afraid sometimes to act just to make sure that you're doing the right thing, or being afraid of doing something wrong. So in the beginning, that is natural. In the beginning, it's natural that we have, because we're still very vulnerable. So it is important to remain very guard and take Prabhupada's, protective fence around, our growing self, Krishna conscious self. We have to be very careful of aparat, which is another thing that is implied in this verse, because the character of the princess is highlighted, the character of chastity, which is this adherence to her vows and her religious principles, and glorified in the Bhagavatam like that. And then we see the king, which was also a very elevated personality. Externally, he saw something that it was very disturbing, and he passed a judgment. He passed a judgment and was disgusted by what he saw, and his judgment was, this girl is asati, is unchaste, and so we have to be also very careful in our dealings with other devotees in passing some judgment. This word aparat is a combination of radha. Radha means devotion, and Shrimati Radharani is the embodiment of devotion, Radha. So the name Radha means devotion. And aparadha means very far from devotion. So you actually, distance yourself from devotion, aparad. So we have to be very careful, remain very chaste to the instructions and the protection, the circle or the fence that the spiritual master has given us, and make sure to avoid committing an offense towards the spiritual master or to the devotees in general. So we should be very guard not to pass judgment on the devotees, especially when you see something that is not compatible with the character. Like, the famous thing that Krishna says, apichet sucharacharam, what is it? Apichet sudurachara. Yes, that even as a devotee, even as the devotee makes even of something most abominable, we still should not be so quick to pass judgment. Krishna warns us. We still should not consider this devotee and pass a judgment and discard. We still have to be careful, even if they commit the most abominable activity, which is something quite, telling. And so when you see, is there in the case here of Sukanya, her character was unquestionable, and just the fact that she very faithfully accepted the arrangement with no protesting, happily accepted the arrangement. That tells, this girl have very, very high character. So if we in general see someone that is of high character and all of a sudden you see something that is conflicting with that view, then one have to pause. There have to be a reason. The king was, he was very quick to judge when he saw, and he was very, very upset. A person who is dhira is able to see and immediately analyze, or better to say, because this king was a very saintly king, but someone who understands the heart, like a spiritual master, who understands the heart of the disciple, or someone who is dhira, is able to immediately see without passing judgment on start just by understanding, knowing the character, and that there must be a reason that is going on here that explains this discrepancy. There's a nice example. I remember my Guru Maharaj telling this story during the South Indian Yatra of Ramanujacharya dealing with this. There is an example of a chaste disciple. It's an example of a chaste wife. And he gave the example of what is the highest principle of chastity as a disciple that rules over anything. And it's an example of someone that is a perfect judge of character, Ramanujacharya. So, it's sort of summarized by this story what the points that I found important in this verse and purport. Once Srila Ramanujacharya came to this village where he had two disciples, a couple, husband and wife, that were extremely poor. When he comes to the hut of this couple, as he approached the house, he saw that no one came to receive. No one was there. And then he noticed that. So he said, "What? This is the house of my disciples. No one is here. No one is there to receive. So what's happening?" Then he sees that although the door is unlocked, it was closed. In general, in India, during the day, especially during those times, still sometimes in here, there's no such a thing of locking doors and closed doors. Doors are always open. So, people come and go like that. But the doors was closed, not unlocked. So then he goes, okay. So then he goes further. He knocks the door. No response. But he could understand, the door is closed, and the door is closed, it's not open, so it must mean, his analysis, it must mean that the wife is inside. So he knocks again, and no response. The wife is inside, and she's not responding. That means that she is not presentable, and she doesn't want to open. It means that they're so poor, so this is Ramanuja Acharya analyzing. It means that they're so poor that she have nothing to wear. So he took his garment, his upper garment, and threw it inside the house. And then, indeed, that was the situation. This female disciple, they were so poor that she didn't have anything to wear. So she took the cloth that Ramanujacharya sent, and she covered herself and then came out and offered proper obeisances. And then she received Ramanujacharya and Ramanujacharya's disciples, and she was a beautiful woman that so she went to the grocer, that it was this lusty man, and she asked the grocer that my spiritual master and his disciples are here and I want to cook something for him. Kindly allow me to take some grocers. And the lusty shop owner, he took advantage, knowing that she was very poor, and she was very beautiful. And he says that, yes, I will give you, but you have to come tonight. Here, afterwards, to give herself to him. And the fact is that he was trying to do that for a long time, but finally he got the opportunity to succeed. And she agreed. She said, I will come, but please give me some grains and vegetables so I can make an offer to my spiritual master. So she was willing to give her chastity in order to serve her spiritual master, which was the highest principle of chastity for her. So she took the groceries, she cooked this very wonderful feast, served Srila Ramanujacharya and his disciples, and as she's serving, the husband came. And when the husband observed, he was surprised. And he asked, how do you get all these things? So she immediately explained the situation. The husband, also being a chaste disciple, he was unhappy for her, but he said, you did the right thing, so you should go tonight. And Ramanujacharya also questioned them. So he noticed the unhappiness, but he noticed, he noticed what was happening. Maybe they were happily serving anyway. But he questioned too, and they explained. And Ramanujacharya was very pleased with them and say, do not worry. Take this Mahaprasadam, this Maha, some remnants from Ramanujacharya's plate, and offer to this man. You'll be protected. And she went. The man was all, fixed up, ready for enjoying. And she offered the plate of Mahaprasadam. He said, oh, nice samosa or something. He took, and his heart completely changed. Then he realized, the exalted position of these devotees, and completely begged forgiveness from them. So, Srila Ramanujacharya didn't pass judgment from the external situation, because he understood the character of these devotees. So he was able to, understanding their character, help them, elevate them, and protect them. Most important, protect them. And on their side, both husband and wife, there were the principles that rule their chastity was their relationship to Guru and Krishna. And that is the highest principle of morality. It has the highest principles of purity. So, and they're glorified and protected because of that. So it's something that we have to also learn from this. We have to be very chaste to the instructions of our spiritual master. We have to be very chaste, very committed to the relationship towards our spiritual master. The principles of chastity here is that there's no question of thinking like, oh, that Maharaj is more exciting than my spiritual master. That is something that, is just as horrible as a wife saying, oh, that fellow is more attractive than my husband, and, let me, go and associate with it. It's a better arrangement. That type of behavior is asati. One's relationship with a spiritual master is the most magnanimous personality who was making a vow in front of Krishna to actually take me back home, back to Godhead. How can I ever think something against that? How can I even act in such a way that disregard in any way this personality who has kindly extended himself to me? So that chastity is a very important thing. And within that chastity, one serves faithfully and engages oneself with happiness and gratitude, and in the service of the spiritual master. And one is fully protected by the instructions that the spiritual master gives us. And as we grow and mature, and that chastity becomes fixed, then naturally, we can more and more, in the same way that the spiritual master, representing the spiritual master, one can actually bring to others that flow of mercy that comes through the spiritual master. Like that. Anyway, any comments or questions? Bhakti Nirina Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for our class. Today's verse was very interesting, and I really like how you said it's possible to be chaste but not be pure, not to be pure. And the question is, how to understand purity for a girl in Kali Yuga?
Yeah. The principle of purity is understanding our eternal connection with Guru and Krishna. Is spiritual realization. It's as we grow in Krishna consciousness. That's the principle of purity. Like the original position, our original position is Krishna consciousness. And then that original Krishna consciousness is just being covered by all kinds of things, conceptions and material conceptions, layers of material conceptions. So we have to go into the process of removing those unwanted things they call anarthas. Anarthas means unwanted things. So the process of purifying oneself is the removing of anarthas. So for a girl or for a man, for all of us, the same principle applies. We have to become Krishna conscious. The principles of Krishna consciousness are the principles that is the actual religious or moral purity. It's the realm of moral purity. Without Krishna consciousness, then is morality without real purity, is material. So I think in the previous class when that I gave on the story of what was the story that I told? The Brahmana who acquired powers just by asceticism. You can be an ascetic and not being pure and obtain powers, material powers. But the result of that is qualities that brings you down materially. So, like I quoted His Holiness Ramapa Swami saying in one class that character that is not anchored in Krishna consciousness is actually, it will bring you down into the material. It becomes it degrades into pride and then to anger. So qualities have to be anchored in Krishna consciousness. So the quality of chastity has to be anchored in Krishna consciousness. And then it's progressive. The quality of chastity that is not anchored in Krishna consciousness, it will degrade into something else. So purity means Krishna consciousness. That's my understanding. We really depend in anything we do to that protection that the spiritual master gives us. Anything that we developing, any quality that we're pursuing, that we're trying to acquire, is all dependent on the mercy of the spiritual master. The protection of the spiritual master, and the protection of the spiritual master is the instructions. My spiritual master once told my wife and I that he likes to give the example of that circle that Lakshman wrote around Sita to protect her. So the instructions are a circle that protects us, that what Prabhupada say, the fence, and maintains our purity. If we step out of that circle of protection, then Ravana will capture. So then Maya will be there. And, we're not protected. So then we have to remain, as long as we remain in that circle, then there's purity. As long as you step out, then you get victimized by whatever, wrong tendencies are there. So for all of us, for girls, for men, for anyone, that's the principle of purity. Is that right? Any other question? Jai Baladev.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for your class. And I was going to ask a different question, but your last comment reminded me of a few statements and lectures regarding the difference between purity and etc., or whatever the subject. But anyway, before I forget, there's an article, transcribed lecture by His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. It's called Never Offend Devotees, and you could probably search on it.
What?
It's called Never Offend Devotees. And in that lecture, he says that even if somehow someone loses control of their senses, Krishna could easily pick you up and forgive, like he was quoting Apichet Suduracharo, even if one commits. But he says, if one offends devotees, then you're really in trouble. And this reminds me of a couple of pastimes, at least, that Hiranyakashipu, even though his name means one who loves women and money, he was able to perform very severe austerities, including celibacy for however many millions of years or however it took to get to his powers. So even though he was free from lust, he wasn't free from homicide. So he may be pure, or just like Durvasa Muni, he was, free from lust, but he wasn't free from homicide. So you may be, pure, but you're a murderer. So that kind of cancels it out. And that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in chapter 8 of Jaiva Dharma. He says, even though a Vaishnava may remove lust from his heart, the desire for pratishta, pride, honor, distinction, doesn't easily go, and therefore we commit, offenses, especially in this pastime, like jumping to conclusions. So my question essentially is that when you mention that verse, even if one commits the most abominable activity, now, how are we supposed to understand that when we see, like, for example, if you have a family member and you see somebody unchaste like your daughter, like in this pastime, everyone in their immediate family does whatever was within their power to maintain that secret. Suppose you have your kids have faults, your wife has fault, your husband has a fault. You're not going to broadcast it to everyone, naturally, presumably. But the tendency is that when we see faults with our greater spiritual family, we have no problem broadcasting it to everyone. Especially if we hear topics like, even if you commit the most abominable, but we see that devotees even argue over the most frivolous stuff like Guru Tattva. But if your wife argued about Guru Tattva, you're not going to divorce her. If you're a child, so how are we supposed to understand, even if you commit the most abominable activity, but we see such people getting so upset over, petty topics that even if your wife disagree with you, your son disagree, you're not going to kick them out, or you're not going to divorce them. So how are we supposed to understand that? Even if you commit the most abominable activity, is that the most abominable activity that we're merely philosophically disagreeing? So how are we supposed to understand all these, when people come in and see all these, what appears to be petty differences when we say, oh, even if you commit the most abominable activity?
I didn't fully get it, but one thing that I think I got from what you said is in the conflict that we see divisions that had happened in our society of devotees, from arguments or behaviors and sometimes devotees, externally doing something that is not within the norm of the society, or at least the accepted norms of the society. And then how to avoid that? Is that? Well, the immediate answer is Srila Prabhupada. We have to be conversant, thoroughly conversant in Prabhupada's teachings. And it's not, and what we're receiving now, from our ISKCON, from, the growth also of ISKCON, is that is not just read Prabhupada's books, because it's not Prabhupada's Prabhupada's instructions also means the context and the intent. So there's this thing, Prabhupada, when he gave instructions, there's also a context in which that instruction was given, and there's also an intent for what that instruction was given. Because the fact is that it becomes confusing, because Prabhupada sometimes will say, this, highlight an instruction in a particular subject matter, and then you can read in some other parts of Prabhupada's instructions on the same subject matter that are conflicted, sometimes even contradictory. So some people say, oh, Prabhupada said. Some people say, oh, Prabhupada said. But the principle is, you also have to understand what is the context in which Prabhupada said this, what is the context in which Prabhupada says it, what is the intent. So we have to be fully conversant with those things. When it's beyond our comprehension, we have to be very careful. And that's also as Prabhupada, understanding Prabhupada's mood and instructions. And the other thing that we have to take into consideration is like in this conversation of Srila Prabhupada with O.B.L. Thakur, that we have to understand what is our situation. We are, like right now, we're not in the position of passing judgment. We're not in the position of going into this, trying to correct people's misunderstandings and things like that. We're in a position that, we're very vulnerable. Our devotion is still protected. You have that, is within that fence. So we have to be very guard against, committing aparat, against being unchaste to one's spiritual master, and simply be, respectful. And there's others that are more qualified than me that are taking care of that. I trust, my spiritual master. Is that same principle. If my spiritual master is working in cooperation with Prabhupada's institution, and my spiritual master is helping, along with the others to shape and protect the institution, I have faith on that. So on those higher levels, they can resolve those things. Myself, really, I have to worry about, make sure I fence my own anarthas, and try to get rid of them. When people get too involved in this bittering and criticizing and pointed out and this and that, in the internet is so boring. And it's actually like, doesn't make you feel enlivened. It's like, you get all confused and upset like that. As a result of that. So this define the body of devotees? No, it doesn't define the body of devotees, ISKCON devotees. It defines a group that is being sort of getting absorbed into these offenses and apparat and conflict that is nothing healthy about it in any way. So why paying attention to that? Better pay attention to the basic instructions that Prabhupada gave us for our growth in Krishna consciousness, and those who are guiding us to understand Prabhupada's instruction. Okay, thank you so much. It's 37 years. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.